Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. Well, this year, many people have lost their lives in the city of Cleveland, and every day, our police officers put themselves in harm's way to protect the public, and some of them have been injured as a result of that. As a city, we have worked hard over the past 7 years since I've been mayor to build trust and mutual respect between our police officers and our community. We put policies in place that gives our police officers and their supervisors the guidance they need to make tough calls in difficult situations. Our police officers go through mandatory training regarding these policies. In doing so, we have two primary purposes. That is, safety of the community and safety of the police officers. After Thursday night's high-speed pursuit and the use of deadly force by Cleveland police officers, the question of whether the use of deadly force was justified or not is being handled by the East Cleveland Police Department and supporting investigating agencies. The city of Cleveland will fully cooperate in regards to that investigation. The question of whether or not the incident was within the box of our policies and approved tactics that defines officer safety and community safety will be handled by the administrative review process in the Cleveland Division of Police. Now, I have specific concerns that I'm asking to be looked at during that review, and I'll list them for you. The supervision of the pursuit, how long the pursuit lasted, the number of officers involved in the pursuit, the number of officers involved in the final incident, and whether or not proper tactics were used that could have prevented the use of deadly force in this incident. Now, Police Chief Michael McGrath has made or will be making contact with the U.S. Attorney and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to ask for their support in assisting us in reviewing all of the matters that we have to review. As I've always said, if our police officers stay within the box and follow our policies and procedures, they will have our full support. If they go outside of the box, there will be consequences. Now, this will take quite some time to complete, over a year, several months, and before the investigation is completed and our administrative review is finished, and we will have many questions and answers as we move forward. Community Relations, the Director Blaine Griffin and his team are engaged with and will work to keep the community fully informed as things develop. They are prepared to connect those in the community who need support to services that can help them, and likewise the police officers that were involved in the incident, this incident will have the support of our employee assistance program to help them deal with the aftermath of this incident. Anytime our community has experienced a situation like the one we did Thursday night, there are many questions that are going to be asked, and it has a significant impact on the community. Now, given the length of time that it will take for this investigation, both the use of deadly force and administrative side to be completed, I'm asking that our entire community have patience and continue to work with us to build stronger connections between our residents and our police officers. Now, I know that much of, or even all of what I've just communicated to you, you've heard in one fashion or form or another from somebody. The purpose for me being here is that you will hear it from me. So there's no question as to where the mayor is on this and the direction that we are taking. Now, with that being said, we will entertain any questions that you have in regards to this incident, and we'll address it as forthrightly as we've attempted to do, not just in this case, but any other case. And I'm pretty sure out of your questions, you will address some things that I have not raised here.
Mayor, how do you balance the need to be open and not compromising the investigation?
Well, it's a tough balancing act, but that's why we're so focused on following policy, process, and procedure. When you do that, that kind of helps that along. When you get outside of that, then it creates issues. And so we will do what it is we need to do. We're not making presumptions of anything. The investigation on the use of deadly force will happen with East Cleveland Police Department and those agencies assisting them. Our responsibility, since it happened in East Cleveland, we do not have that privilege or prerogative. Our responsibility now is to look at the procedures, whether or not there was a following of the procedures and policies and the tactical way in which you do things that should have been followed, and if in fact any of that was violated. If it is, then there are administrative actions that we can take. If it were not, then and people stay within the box, then we're for support. If they're not within the box, there are consequences. So I don't whether or not it's fair or not fair or tough balancing act, I think is if we presume something. We're not presuming anything. We're going to, wherever this leads us is where this will go. And if people are in the box, that's fine. If they're outside the box, that's on them.
Police were searching for shell casings and or weapon along the shoreway and some of the route last night and again today. Right. Is there a reason why there was a lag time in that? I'll
ask the chief to respond to that. I know that when something happens in the city of Cleveland, there's a process and procedure we have that automatically the shooting team is called up, the city prosecutor is called up, and there's almost like an aggressive way of addressing, collecting the evidence, preserving the scene and things like that. But I'll let the chief.
You know, it was determined Thursday night, Friday morning that East Cleveland would take over the investigation. So we had to wait for them to get up to speed, but we also wanted to listen to all the audio tapes very carefully to see if we could identify a possible location and time where something could have been thrown out of the vehicle. So in that process, over the last couple of days, in fact, we started looking at the route yesterday, and we're continuing to look at it today to see if we can locate, in cooperation with East Cleveland BCI, to see if we can locate any type of evidence that may have been thrown from the vehicle during the course of that pursuit.
Is it true that there was a supervisor at one point who asked that the pursuit be terminated?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you have concerns about friendly fire issues if there was no gun and a lot of those cruisers were friendly fire?
You know, anytime you're in a tactical situation relative to police officers and firing their weapons, that's always a primary concern, is friendly fire. At this point in time, until we proceed and East Cleveland proceeds with their investigation, I don't know what those circumstances were on the scene and where the officers were positioned at the time they were firing their weapons. But that's always primary when you get into tactics, crossfire, etc., etc. Very, very important in a tactical situation for police officers.
Chief, will you release the radio tapes so we can hear them?
I think that will be...
Yes. The tapes are under review by the Department of Law. They are expediting that review, and they should be released no later than tomorrow.
And Chief, and I'm quoting from 02 here, so if I'm outdated, you tell me. Officers shall not join in a pursuit without permission from the sector supervisor. The sector supervisor shall permit no more than 2 police vehicles to engage directly in a pursuit unless unusual circumstances. Did the officers who were pursuing, all of them, have permission to pursue?
Well, that is something we will be looking at during our administrative review. And that particular policy is usually updated every other year. And the last year we updated that policy was in August of 2010. But that's why we're conducting this administrative review, is to ensure that either they were or they weren't in compliance with our own policies and procedures in the division.
Where does the policy stand now in terms of...
Wait a minute, let's go in order. Tom Maris is next.
Mayor, this question has been asked and re-asked, maybe even going back to prior questions about the city's relative lack of use of dash cams in these cruisers. The largest city in Ohio that does not heavily rely on them. Why is that? I mean, isn't this the kind of incident that makes a compelling case for the value?
Well, I don't think it's just this incident. I think there are many incidents that will give justification.
We've asked this question multiple times over the last decade.
Right.
Why has not the administration aggressively pursued the...
I don't think we have not aggressively pursued it to the point that it's in all of our vehicles. Are there in some?
Yes, sir. They are in some vehicles.
So we have staged it that way. And as you know, there are budgetary considerations, there are a lot of consideration, but our policy as we move forward is to have it in all of the vehicles. It would serve us well to have those tapes. I know that primarily they use them for DUI, driving under the influence, and as part of their evidence that the person was impaired and things like that. And in this case, the cameras would have been on, they would have seen it. So yes. Now, why we have not done, I would say part of it is budgetary.
So are you saying you're committing to doing it now?
No. I'm telling you that we recognize that that's a problem. Now, as we evaluate what we could have done better as an administration, of course, that will be one of the things that we will be looking at, that and several other things. I'm pretty sure that the chief, as he looks at his police orders, general police orders, protocol, procedures, policies, that this incident will bring to light some things that he may have to change. So it will be part of it.
I mean, if you could snap your fingers, cost out factor and say every cruiser in Cleveland will have a dash cam, and do you believe in the value of it? Would you like to see them more widely used?
Well, let me say this, in the next 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, we will be piloting personal body cameras on the officers that take you beyond just the dash camera. It takes you to pursuits, foot pursuits, et cetera, et cetera. So very soon we will be piloting that project, and we will compare that to the cameras in the vehicles and see which direction we should proceed in.
So you're likely to go in one direction or the other here? I mean, you're seeking to make greater use of technology in this regard?
I anticipate that would be the recommendation, yes, sir.
And how many cameras do we have presently in cruisers? 15, I think, was the number last time we checked.
Approximately 15 to 20 cameras we have in cruisers, yes, sir.
Tracy Collins.
Chief, has the 13 officers been interviewed yet, and how will they have to say to be put into this investigation?
The 13 officers have not been interviewed yet, and that will be at the discretion of the East Cleveland Police Department and their partners who are conducting this investigation.
Do you have any idea when that would happen, or it's all up to East Cleveland?
That's pretty much up to the investigating agencies that will be taking the lead here.
Now, and to follow up on that, then the question to us is, when will we have the opportunity to do administrative review, which will also entail some questioning too. So that has not started. I think there will be a ruling on how we can move forward with that relatively soon.
That's correct, Mayor. Currently, we put together a policy procedure / tactical review committee on Saturday morning with members of the command staff, Office of Professional Standards will be part of that team, and we'll be looking at the policy procedure compliance during this incident.
So they'll go hand in hand as East Cleveland's doing theirs, you'll do this administrative at the same time?
That's the ideal situation.
That is correct. And that is the recommendation nationally, to not wait until the end of the criminal investigation to proceed with the administrative review. But it's very delicate because we can't cross the line where we would have an impact on any type of criminal proceedings. So we have to be very, very selective here. And we will be in communication with representatives from the criminal investigation team. But there's no reason why we can't look at our radio tapes and our policies, procedures, how many people were actually involved. But it's very sensitive. These are two very, very sensitive investigations that really we have to be very careful with what we do, but we're not going to wait till the very end of the criminal investigation to start the administrative end of it. We're going to start it probably someday this week. Probably tomorrow we will start really zeroing in on that.
Peggy? Chief, how many Cleveland police officers were involved in the pursuit?
At this point, I don't have a number for you. You know, I can guess, but I'm not going to do that. Once we start our administrative review, I will have a very fixed number as the number of officers that were engaged in that particular scenario.
And are the 13 officers, are they back to work today?
No, the 13 officers will come back to work tomorrow, the next day, and then they go in our wellness program under the medical director.
So they won't be actually active?
No, we call that a restricted duty status under the wellness program, which falls under the umbrella of our medical unit, and that's where they'll stay for quite a period of time. Usually the average is about 6 months, maybe longer.
Sarah Buttison?
I just wanted to find out, so are you saying that you were going to have to wait till at least Cleveland talks to all these guys before you're going to talk to these guys?
That's basically correct.
Chief, can you say, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
can you say, I mean, on Friday, you at the news conference, when you were saying, why is there 137 shots, why did 13 officers, you were asking a lot of questions I think the community's been asking. Is part of your review and part of your concern that there may have been a breakdown in the command structure here?
You know, it's too early to respond to that question. I asked those questions, why 137 shots were fired, why did the pursuit take 20 minutes? I asked those questions because I know those were the first questions the community were going to ask. I don't have the answers, but once we get into the criminal part of it and the administrative end of it, we have to answer those questions, which we will.
Are you confident your command structure is in place today, that it works?
I am, very much so. You know, we encounter armed suspects daily. I mean, if anybody attended our awards ceremony on Tuesday last week, we probably had 25 scenarios, and all 25 scenarios involved handguns and shots fired and everything else. And the officers were receiving awards for their good deeds and their dedication to the community. So yeah, it does work. It absolutely works. We have a great police department, and the officers do a fine job.
So we'll have Tassie, and then we'll have Paolo Bonsky.
Chief, what was the racial composition of the 13 officers?
The 13 officers, 12 of the 13 were Caucasian and one was Hispanic.
Chief, after the brain autopsy, protocol set, so the numbers are sensitized and something like this. I know you're not doing the criminal part, basically, which is great. Confident that they have that same, their standards are as high as yours are.
Yes, absolutely, and I believe they will be. And if they're not, we'll make a recommendation. But absolutely, we need all eyes. We need to be very transparent relative to this investigation.
We have Dave Summers and then Jack Shea.
Chief, have we any information after 5 days regarding even the mayor's questions, like was it properly supervised or was 13 too many? I mean, do we have any information that answers those questions whatsoever?
Well, we have...
Either the mayor or the chief can answer this.
Well, we have information, but it would be premature to draw a conclusion from it. There's a process that we have to go through, and a part of that process is the interviewing, the talking to officers, the ones that may not have been involved in the actual shooting, listening to the tapes, all these kinds of things. So it's not that we don't have information, but we just can't draw a conclusion from that. Now, there's a process we have to go through. Our duty and our responsibility is to oversee what happens in the city of Cleveland. And in this case, with the police department, it is officer safety, community safety. Every day that there's a report of someone getting killed, whether it's this incident or another incident, and the director calls me, I have the same thing about that. It bothers me. It bothers me. This is our time, our stewardship, and I'm not trying to make excuses as to why this happened or that happened. That becomes irrelevant. The fact is that it happened. And what we do, rather than deal with it in a political way of talking about who's wrong or who's right, we engage in a process and procedure that leads to a conclusion that does not pre-assume anything. So yes, we have facts, we have information, but it is far too early to draw conclusions from that. And now, the fact, we know the number of shots, we're listening to the tapes, we're surmising how many officers were there, did they follow proper procedure, did they employ proper tactics when they caught up with the car that didn't put them in a situation where they had to use deadly force. All these kind of things we have to ferret out, and that will take some time. And if we had both investigations, the use of deadly force and the procedural and administrative review under the control of the department, we could give you more definite answers about how long it's going to take it because we have protocols. But since we don't, then all we have under our control right now is the administrative review.
Those basic numbers, just to follow, those basic numbers that are out there, 137 shots,
right.
13 off, don't speak to your policies at all?
Oh, yes, they do speak to the policy on its surface. There's prima facie kind of stuff. But there may be mitigating circumstances that we are unaware of that will come out based on conversations with other police officers who may have been there who didn't shoot. Or it may come out on some of the tapes. It may happen with some of the supervisors, whether a sergeant or lieutenant, who may have interacted or communicated with those officers during the chase. The question is how long, why you chase so long? Why so many officers? See, on its face it seems one thing, but that's jumping to a conclusion that may not necessarily be of true outcome. We need to look at the whole thing, and there may be mitigating circumstances. On its face, it's problematic. That's why we're looking at it.
Jack Schaefer.
Chief, what have you been able to learn about the initial event outside the Justice Center, about whether a shot was fired or whether it was something else that was mistaken for a shot? And isn't it true that there were people inside the building that thought that they heard a shot as well?
You're absolutely correct. This was initiated because there was an officer on the street who heard a shot and thought the shot came from the vehicle. And it is true that there were people inside the Justice Center that heard a loud noise, and they thought it was a shot also. We also had a security guard in our booth at the top of the ramp that also heard what she believed was a loud shot and ducked down behind the glass. So that initiated this particular incident.
And what have you been able to learn? And is it possible it was a shot, or is it possible it was a backfire on a vehicle? Or
that hasn't not been determined yet.
Have you been able to determine that it wasn't a shot based on no shell casings and no holes in any walls?
No, sir.
And Chief, do you know, were either one of the people in the car, were they on probation? I know they're not here to answer the questions. Is there any theory at this point as to why they would run from the police?
As far as probation, I don't have that information in front of me. I don't believe they were, but they did have somewhat of criminal records or some type of felony and misdemeanor violations. As far as why they were fleeing from the police, they would not stop. That has really not been determined yet. There was a reason, and that's where the criminal investigation will, at some point, we would hope, make some type of determination why that gentleman would not stop over better than 22 minutes.
We'll have Paul Lowski, Sarah, Tom, and Tracy now conclude.
Chief shot, when the shot was fired or not, it appears that car ran to a police car. Would that be considered the use of deadly force against an officer under your policies, and could that be justified when an officer fired?
Depends on the circumstances. If the driver of the suspect vehicle used it as a deadly weapon, then we would consider that a deadly weapon and we could respond accordingly.
Sarah?
Will you release the officers' names, and if not at this time, can you explain to the public why those are being withheld?
Our normal protocol under deadly force incidents, we usually wait 48 hours, etc., to release the officer's name. That's when we're conducting the investigation. Currently, we are not conducting the criminal investigation, so that is a question that will have to be posed to the investigating agencies.
Tom?
Did the officer who reported the initial perceived shot, did they have reason to believe that they were being shot at? How far were they from the vehicle? What was their relationship to the car?
From what we currently know now is that they heard a shot, they saw a car speeding, going fast. They heard what they believed to be was a shot fired, as it went by them. And the distance is probably no more than 50 feet, probably less. The car was going westbound on Sinclair.
So they believe they may have been being shot at.
That is correct, sir.
Tracy Carlos?
Chief, do you know if anybody witnessed the shooting that actually saw it happen, whether it be a police officer or civilian in that area?
I do not have that information currently.
Last question, Ed Gallagher.
Chief, I just want to follow up on her question about releasing the names of the officers, you know, from a community standpoint, saying, well, it's up to East Cleveland, it's their investigation. I mean, they're your officers, this happened under your watch with your department. You know, that feels like a cop-out. I mean, like it's there, we're going to let them handle it. I mean, why withhold the names of the officers when we hear the names of suspects and people who are killed?
Number one is East Cleveland is they're taking the lead on this particular investigation, and we have to give them their due respect. So I don't want to step across that line. They may have a reason why they don't want those names released yet. So I would have to ask them first, and then ask them how long they would recommend before we release the names. But when you have an investigation like this, you have to be very cooperative with the other agency. You just can't take the point and go in our direction and they go in their direction. That doesn't accomplish anything. It's a partnership. When they have their team together, their investigative team, we will pose that question to them. At what point can we release the names of the officers?
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Reflected on video. Driving range. No.